a joint meeting of the Historic Commission and the Historic District Commission. And I think present to us about the proposed senior community center. So yes,
We'll start with that.
Mr. Phillips, you may have the floor. Do we want to do introductions?
might not be a bad idea.
Deb, you want to start?
Sure, I'm Deb Flanagan, I'm the chair of the Historic District, also the Realtor representative, yeah.
I'm Dan Byer, I'm the vice chair of the Historic District and the chair of the Historic Commission.
I'm Christina Campbell, I'm just on both the Historic District and regular commission.
I'm Phil Sipley, part of the Council of the Aging, and currently chairing the building project for a community and a senior center.
Ruth O'Grady, I'm a member of the Historical District Commission.
Karen Mead, Historical Commission.
Deb Rowe, Historic Commission.
And Kathy Schofield, Historic Commission.
Yes.
Alrighty, all right.
With that, why don't I start more in a logical approach that I usually try to present this. Questions along the way is great because it's really informal. But look at this thing. I gave you a couple of little handouts. One talks about a welcoming introduction. We just finished that piece. History of the center and the building committee, a little bit of that. The history started actually the senior center somewhere around 7 or 8 years ago. We're looking to expand. The building was built 33 years ago. Adam was done about 17 years ago, the back part of it. And that was an old typical Mendon approach. You know, let's go build it. A bunch of local people did, worked on it, and built on a building. And it was a wonderful place. Back in that time, there probably was about 1,000 seniors in town. Today, there's about 1,800. It also serves 10 to 20 organizations in the evening, so, and that's non-senior. If you look at the latest stats for Baby Ham, she has a high percentage of people just dealing with fuel assistance. The food pantry is much, much more active. But, the building also is a disaster emergency center for heating and cooling. If there's a catastrophe in town, there are 25 to 30 cots there now, but it's not according to the state spec. It doesn't have showers. It's not big enough for our population. So this building would handle that, taking it up to 125 people in an emergency center basis.
Yeah.
If we lost power, if we had a severe snowstorm. We have, I think many years ago, had a couple families living there. When there was we had to knock out of a hurricane come through, knock out power for a couple weeks.
Just a question on that. It is just the senior center that has an emergency shelter arrangement?
There's, Club has additional capabilities. They're part of the emergency management plan that Dave and Mark, who manage those emergency centers for us. So it's us and Club for the two areas that have capabilities. Our center is a little different because it has a full-time generator system. Where Clough, I don't believe, has that. And they'd have to go in the whole building, where our building's smaller, so it's easier. The new building also would. We also have the food pantry, which gives us provisions. And we have an active kitchen currently, and in the future we have one as well. So, you know, some of the things that we talked about, this building is more than just where a bunch of old people go. I can say that I'm old, so but the center really is an area where we have assistance for the Medicare and Medicaid for disabled people. We have veterans programs run out of there. We have the fuel assistance for anybody in town. In addition to the foods, and I had the statistics looking at one of these files, but I think we serviced, I want to say 400 or 500 families with the food pantry. Family units or events. So there's quite a bit of people here that use that center for more than one thing. I laughed when my kids broke their leg. I went out and got a crutch. I could have gone to the senior center because they have equipment that they don't have, or a wheelchair. Or all those things you need. So historically, the town has been very good to the senior center. Amy's done a phenomenal job managing a volunteer army, I thought. She really does. But 60 or 70 people or more, maybe 80 now. That's just volunteer time, and they run programs. The Friends of the Elders, they commit funds by fundraising to put programs on, to pay for events, for instructors, for speakers. So all those things are good, but the hard thing today is that when you go to a meeting and you have a sign-up list, and you want to have an event, and you have a wait list on it, people can't attend because there's no room in the inn. Or you want to do more with the town. You'd like to run not only meals, but you'd also like to run an exercise program. Or you'd like to, you can't do that. There's just not enough room in the inn. So with that, we said, okay, what do we really need? They said, well, that's when they tapped me. Said, Phil, you want to do this project? Sure, we'll go check it out. They gave me all this stuff they did for the years. They did one in 14, they did one in 19, they did one in update in 21. I said, okay, we'll take a look at this. And I said, let's take a look at needs analysis. And let's think about not only this center for seniors, but it's really a community kind of thing. I'm leading off of the fact that this is for the whole community. It has the capability to have people use the facility for events, clubs, groups. It has the capability where we can schedule and manage evening classes or daytime classes simultaneously while the seniors are doing something. Today you can't do simultaneous anything. We have the capability to expand lunch programs because if you have more capability, you don't have to tear down your lunchroom every day to do an event for a speaker. So this becomes more of a facilities for the whole town. We have vans that take people to medical needs. That's not for seniors. If you're handicapped, you call up Amy and her team, and they'll take you to a doctor's. There's local restrictions. We have some difficulties going on with local, like taking to Boston and things like that. We try to co-op. We did collaborate with Tri-Valley, I think, but they ran a budget issue, so we're trying to solve that somehow too. A VA clinic, we have all the medical clinics in there, blood pressures, all these other things, but they have to do it there's no private rooms. Podiatry, there's no private rooms. So you have to do that in off hours. So put up a screen on one half the room. So this was a great building, the old building, but it's time. We looked at 4 locations. The current center, to expand it, make it bigger. But then we ran into a septic system. We ran into a non-standard, non-compliance well, I think. And also the parking issue and the overall land footprint is relatively small compared to what we needed. So once we did a needs analysis of how much room we needed, based on current and future needs, we have expansion built in this. We don't want to do it again in 5 years and say, oh, we ran out of room. We like to say this building is good for 30 years or so. I don't have that chart up here, but if you look at this one in your packet that shows the footprint on North Avenue Route 16, there is expansion to be able to bump out on that same footprint additional space 30 years from now. Not my kids, but my grandkids, I need to worry about it. But going through the history, we looked at Morrissey Drive, which is a location in addition to ours, center. Oh, by the way, to reconfigure our center, we had to tear the back of the building off to make it one floor because it's been cumbersome going up and down.
Yeah. So
we'd have to we'd cut the foundation. The other building would be cut, so we'd have to shut the center down as it exists today for 1 year at least. We'd have to relocate all those services scattered through town as best we can. And the cost of construction is basically, because you have the tear down, it's basically, there's no benefit. It's going to cost you the same. You still have to build the sticks. And you have to build it today's code, so you need a sprinkler system. You need an elevator in. You need, all those things have to go in. So you're not saving money by using that same building. So once we determined that and the difficulties building on that lot, we then looked at 3 other locations, Morrissey Drive, which is the old police station attempt. And our architect was there. We looked at the area, and that didn't quite fit the bill for a number of different reasons. Primary, was concerned actually running right through the fire department's parking lot entrance to get back to the seniors. So we looked for another access point, but there's private land on both sides of it, so that's probably the only way into that Morrissey Drive facilities. I think someday might be a great expansion or location for a public safety building. But, and then also had a footprint that didn't satisfy the needs of the floor plan. And the parking issue, we probably would have to figure out how to get into paddock property that we just recently bought and expand that. So there was some strengths around footprint. The next one we looked at was North Avenue, Hopedale Street. Generous property owner was going to donate that to us, but it was tied up under conservation restrictions. And to change a conservation restriction, you need to go to 2 sessions of the state legislation and get a positive vote and give them an offset. Because new, not old stuff, but new conservation land. It had to go through 2 town votes. So that would add at least, in our estimation, 2 years onto the project, or approximately $1 million+ because each year it goes up. Just the normal inflation factors that we have in our estimates. So based on that, and after legal counsel reviewed it, they suggested that if timing is an issue, we probably should move on. Not that it's a bad lot, it was just the restrictions that were put on it. The drive, you couldn't put a parking lot in it because it didn't have the drainage kind of field, which is just stone. The footprint of the building that was designed for that was allowed on it, was just a small 2-story barn type of a thing because it was going to be, sounds like a good plan they originally had, but it just didn't fit the needs of this. And then we looked at another municipal property, North Avenue and Route 16, across from Clough. And that's the location we selected. We did that after weeks or months of deliberation, gaining facts. We know that across Misco, Hopedale, there's probably 4,700 cars that drive past there every day. And the peak times of this. If you go in front of Clough School, there's about 5,700. So there's about 1,000 more. If you go past the current senior center and Morrissey Drive, there's close to 11,000 cars that go. So from a safety standpoint, if you ever pulled out of the senior center, taking a left-hand turn, you better not be slowing.
It's true.
I try not to.
But, so we did, I mean, we took a lot of factors involved.
Yeah.
In selecting the North Avenue, I don't have to put a big word in here, but in selecting that location, we took a look at the fact that people said they were concerned about the orchards there and pesticides used through the history. So we brought in an engineering firm in to test the soil, dig the test holes. We had 10 test holes done, we had an independent firm take a look, came back clean. So we don't have to worry about contaminant movement, we don't have to worry about contaminant. Because the alternative is you could move the dirt somewhere or have somebody haul it away and put it somewhere. We don't have to worry about that at all, it came clean. Good news, we didn't hit ledge on our test holes, so hopefully we won't hit ledge when
That's
we go.
incredible.
We can't, yeah, it is incredible for this town.
Yeah.
Looking at the soil, we're gonna perk, because after we went down 10 feet, we've got a little water, so we're gonna perk in the summer like you always do in Mendon. But the soil sampling for the septic, based on the individual who, not me, knows the dirt, said he felt that it'd be a good drain. It had sand in it, so it'd be good for septic systems to drain. It will be a municipal well for that building, I guess, Dan?
The public water line.
Yeah. So there's some added cost we'll have to put in there.
You would be able to do public water there?
It's gonna be a local, municipally owned public water supply to serve just that building.
Yeah, we can't, I'd love to be able to do more, but we can't do that.
Yeah, no, it means, minimum 100-foot no disturb zone, testing, all that.
We had, the engineer did put together the scheme for that. It also has, I think, 500 gallons worth of stored water underneath for the sprinkler system that has to be installed. New building codes. It's not like the old days, you have to put in complete the cost. We didn't do that 17 years ago. We didn't do that in my house. But now you have storage tanks that have to go in. So that's all incorporated. So the committee did a lot of work, a lot of people contributed, and then we came up with our first bid, an estimate came in around 17.4 million. So we told the architect that's not viable. That's too crazy. So he came back in We went back and forth around 15, came back in around 14.7. And we said, well, what we did actually is, if you look at the floor plan, this area here actually was the space, the second floor. If you look, this is the top part of the building, this is the bottom part of the building. This was actually going to be facilities that we could use here. But we looked at our needs, we figured out how to rearrange the footprint. And because we were retaining so much dirt and earth, because it's just local location,
Yeah,
by knocking out that excavation and knocking out that square footage, we were able to save another $1 million. Some other cuts that we took in saving the dollars is that we will be solar or fully electric capable, but the solar panels and things, we're gonna have to go out on a grant.
Yeah.
It's not in our budget. We took that out. If we get a grant, we're gonna slap it in. No question about it.
You're gonna slap it in there, you're gonna throw it on the roof, or you're gonna slap it in the ground?
Two schools of thought. Half of our committee would like to put it on the ground because it's directional, and it doesn't impact the maintenance of the long term. That would be one of our advocates, Mike A, our construction guy. But we can get, once we see there's viable grants to go after that, we can look at that and add that to the building. It is going to be energy efficient, highly energy efficient. Having heat pumps, insulation, windows are higher scale. The other thing that we cut is we are doing a vinyl siding and not the hardwood, the masonry. And that saved another $150,000, thereabouts. And also saves in maintenance. And I can relate to that because I have a vinyl house now. I've been in it 23 years. Never painted it. I have a guy come out. Off. My house on Puddingstone was the hard masonry siding. Nice, looks colonial. They both look colonial, but I had to paint it every 4 or 5 years. So the maintenance factor that we can go with the Harvey siding, which is the maintenance, really nice siding. But there's a cost there, the ongoing maintenance costs. So right now, it's not going with that siding. It's going to go with a high quality one.
and would that also be for the barn section of the
Yes.
building?
Yeah. And it's been used on all the historical buildings in other towns.
Yeah.
I checked that out, I said, have you been using it in other districts, historic districts, and they said, absolutely.
Yeah,
But that's true. You did, I mean, you and my, yeah. Yeah, this is actually,
Sorry, what, vinyl on the historic districts? Did I mishear that?
No, they use it.
What's districts have that?
I'm not sure, I'd have to ask the architect, but I did talk to the architect, and he said it has been used in other historical.
I'm
sites.
gonna say I don't like it. But, I mean, I think I'm referring to the vinyl siding on it. I think if you're going in that much, why wouldn't you spend another $175,000 and make it look like it, falls in line with the area of town?
I think it will look like it falls in line. And I think the concern for me, the 175 wasn't that much. The more of the annual, the every 5-6 year maintenance, because it would have to be painted.
Well, what sort of maintenance, is that like that hardy board stuff that's gonna get painted every? Say, look at this building, we didn't paint it for how many years?
Hardy
How much
board
is that?
doesn't need to be painted every 5 years.
How long is it like from this?
Hardy board has a really long life.
Sorry.
But you're gonna pay for it, but it has a long,
Our
it's
original-
not like a cedar plant.
Yeah, our original design was hardy.
Hardy board, yeah. That was a nicer way to go about it, if the funds are there.
Probably should have led with this, to be clear, this is not in a historic district, so we don't have any official jurisdiction.
No, but I agree.
But I do know, we're thinking North Ave is the next likely target,
Yeah,
so it would,
I think that'd be great area for more.
And vinyl siding is currently a hot button topic, with some other properties we have issues with. It just, I think it would be a shame.
I think we'll have to take it back to the committee and figure it out. And I'm not opposed to doing creative things. Let's get a grassroots function, say, for $170,000, can we do some kind of crazy fundraising or grant exercise?
and also maybe just, bring in samples of the materials so people can, and photographs of it, and,
The architect would be glad to do that, because he's gone both ways. He's done the hardy board, and he's also came in with he says, a high quality one. So, but if that's, I'll bring it back to committee as a recommendation, but it won't be in time for the town meeting.
Yeah.
But we have 2 design phases, right? Design phases.
And then what I like, you know, I'm familiar with architects making, you know, drawings look all, you know, beautiful, and we have pavers, and we have beautiful windows, but when the reality is, you know, these plantings, I don't know that there is room in the budget for what this image is. And so my question is, so what are the windows going to be, and are we going to see an actual landscape architect go in there and make it look like it's done senior device? I guess I'm skeptical.
Okay, I think the windows, they're not triple pane, but they're highly efficient, double pane windows. And we could get, and actually I've got a detail, and maybe I can provide that to you. I've got a detailed 30 or 40 page construction estimate. And that will answer a lot of your questions. I'm glad to give that to you.
Yeah.
And we're gonna post it as soon as we figure out a good place to put it. But I have that document, which gets into the details.
Yeah.
It'll tell you about what we're looking at.
Mhm.
I'm looking at some of the areas that, interesting enough, I went to some meetings that there was some funds or some money around to plant apple trees. Might be an interesting thought to do on this.
Years ago, there was talk with CPA about trying to replant along the frontage along the road. I mean, it actually was back when Sharon Cutler was around. And I think that money was approved, and there's a whole bunch of cleanup that had to happen, not quite got taken out of it. It may be possible to re-access that to look at replanting the kind of orchard vista that was there a little bit.
Yeah, the interesting, you're right, architect renditions are good, but what you see in these pictures here, structurally, today we have volunteers do our small gardens. This is bigger gardens, of course. And this is beautiful. I'm not sure it'd be that beautiful, probably grass. The courts and things, but I think we'd be able to, I mean, we looked at courts and those components, they should be highly professional, have lights on. They're not gonna be something I put in my backyard.
Yeah, why not, Phil?
Well, actually, my wife wouldn't let me put this something.
Oh, gotcha.
They'd have to be highly.
So, you know, and I, being kind of, you know, a landscape person, it would be really nice to have shade trees in these areas where, you know, people can sit in the shade when it gets too hot, or everything starts to cook, because that's a full sun
That's a
location.
full sun location.
And like, to your point, I guess my concern is you're gonna go in, you're gonna do this for, say, 14 million. And once you put everything in, there's not gonna be any money left to make that landscape feel like it should be. And I hate to see a big building there that is just, it doesn't make sense.
There seems to be a lot of,
And also, and my other concern is, what is that, tax increase gonna look like for the residents? I know you're saying that we have more seniors here, and I do believe you on that, but I would say that if we continue to increase the taxes, within the town, then we are gonna see more seniors leave, and then obviously the demand in the spaces.
yeah, I think we're also demographics, my neighbors, they're gonna be seniors pretty soon. I debate that point, but I think the tax consideration, I would agree. Taxes are sensitive to everybody, as I said earlier before you came, I think. Even people on that work every day, they're on fixed incomes by their paycheck that they get, unless they're in sales. So fixed income people are not just seniors, fixed income people is everybody in town. So when we increase the taxes, we take a look at that and say, that's an important thing to do. I voted through a lot of whatever they call the 2.5 overrides for all the schools. I've been here for 40 years. And I think a community center like this, and it's not just for seniors, and I assure you that, this is a community center. My daughter's looking at this, and she's 40. She's not looking at this as a senior center. But it's an investment. It's an investment. We need to invest in schools, we need to invest in police stations, we need to invest in fire stations.
And so your point, I guess, and I'm all for this if it makes sense for the town, but to your point, we need to invest in schools and, not to kind of go down that path, but our middle school is absolutely
I
a
understand.
disaster.
I had 2 families go through that.
Okay,
I raised
and,
a 25-year-old kid right now.
and if we approve this, I can tell you right now, if they try and push for a new middle school, no one's gonna go for it, because everybody just had their tax increase because of the senior center.
Do you
Yeah, I guess
know
what
if
you-
that's in the works?
I mean,
I don't think you're gonna see a new middle school anytime in the next 30 years on the ballot,
No, I
to
don't.
be quite honest with you. I think there's major improvements that need to happen at that building, but I think building a middle school is so far out of our reach. Not that it's not, I mean, I agree with you, it's old, it's dated,
Phone
the
data.
facilities are a mess.
Standing.
It's got a lot of problems, but-
Yeah,
I was there a while ago.
I mean, I think I can go, two sets of families go through that house.
right, and I guess there's just a lot of concerns going through my head with this, and I think it's great. Definitely don't like the vinyl siding, I think it would be good for the town to have, I love the idea of, combining it into a community center. I'm just not 100% that it makes sense right now for our town, but.
But I look at it this way, because of the school impact, this never got out of the select board or the budget approval for the 10 years, right? It never got in front of the town. And if we don't do something with it now, it'll never get in front of the town again. It could be another 10 years.
Right.
And by then, the people will say, I'm gonna go to Bellingham, I'm gonna go to Uxbridge, I'm gonna go to Upton. And you're not gonna have the sense of community. And I think when I see the people here, they were the school teachers of my kids. They were I value the fact that our kids are important, schools are important. But when my parents were getting older, they were also important when I was taking care of my kids. So that's all I'd ask you to consider.
Yeah.
And you're right, taxes are
I
great.
have my father and my aunt, and they're all
Yeah.
seniors, they live in town, they wouldn't dream step foot in the senior center, but maybe they.
Maybe if they found it an interesting place, they will. I never thought I'd walk into it. Look what happened to me.
I know, Billy.
I agree that there's gonna be a tax impact. And we all have to weigh, what our priorities, our personal priorities. And if the priority is not to increase taxes, I don't agree with this, that's fine. I think there's a valid reason to build a community center. You brought up an interesting point about maybe North Avenue being an area for a historic district. Ever since that building got torn down overnight that one time.
Well, that's pretty much what started everything we've been trying to do.
Yeah, I remember that. I was there one day and it was gone the next. I think that was always a good place to build, a community type of a feel. To build something more than just the Founder's Park across the way. We help support that in any way we can.
Yeah, I think it's taken us a long time to wrap our heads around the loss of those buildings. Because it was a Doggett and a Dudley House and then the Comstock House. So it was, just washing out that historic center.
Just, knock it all out.
I mean, and so I think people are trying to come around and, see the possibilities now.
And again, I think it was Colleen at the Lions Club. Just let your imagination, think about what you could do with that whole parcel on the property down.
Why doesn't it go to the edge here?
I think that's conservation
Conservation.
restriction, they protected the whole frontage of the thing except for
okay.
possibly an easement.
Okay.
And it would be my hope that whatever design comes through may
I think we
dictate
need this.
what's done with the balance of the property, just so that we don't get something way out of whack,
I think we all have a statement.
Yeah,
I'm sorry I don't have the floor plan chart with me,
They
but if you look at the lot plan, that top area close to North End, that could be very creative up there. I think it's the second, third page in.
There's gonna be new left turn lanes in all four directions. It's gonna actually.
And then what did the abutters say? Did the abutters have say in any of this, or?
Yeah, well, actually, some of them are seniors,
Okay, so how, and like
well, actually, one of the guys, I forgot his name, he said he's gonna set up a little stand on the back so he could just, sell Kool-Aid to the seniors. But he says, he wants me to put a trail in, a stone path, so he can just walk to the front desk.
I have a feeling you will.
And the school traffic is an issue, we talked about that, but it's a scheduling issue.
Yeah,
And the person who lives right next to where this lot is, the first house in, So they just get used to it. If there's a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the afternoon, you just don't leave. Unless you have to.
I do, just before we run out of time, to piggyback on what you brought up too, definitely we should sit down and make sure like all the plantings should be native, all the green stormwater infrastructure stuff, some of which I think is code that'll happen, but like the stuff that was done on this campus, any of that bioretention. And I do, like to Deb's point, I'll be fully transparent, parks as it stands today will not be able to maintain any of this beyond mowing the grass.
I'm not, yeah,
You know, certainly that's a problem and we need to build parks because we should be able to maintain a space like this, but just everybody's prepared that there'll have to be groups to handle all the plantings and all that.
yeah, I mean, currently our footprint's pretty small. And obviously, but we have a volunteer base that comes in, does all that stuff.
But yeah, I think like the native plants and the trees and everything we did on this campus,
I think, yeah,
I'm sure they'll do that, but.
I would love to have the next design phase get into more and more detail.
Mhm.
I'd be glad to have you folks participate in that. And I fall for the native plants and all those things too. As long as they're colorful and they're attractive, and not just some of these things that wildly grow in my yard that,
Bradford pears.
you know, that I chop out.
Well, I don't know if BBT ever started with their horticultural department.
No, they didn't.
No, but maybe even like Norfolk Aggie could start, you know, from seedlings and start, or, you know, young trees and start to, you know, propagate them to, you know, go onto the site.
Are maple trees good for you?
Yes.
Maples, you know, maples is an inexpensive way to.
We'll have to clean up, so.
Yeah.
Parks.
It's just that's the problem. And then I brought it up at the meeting last night, you know, we need more staffing. Certainly, you know, we're gonna build these things and maintain them, or even just what we have here, but.
So will you work in collaboration with the gentleman who does the haying and fields? Like, will that continue as you, you know, when this project is underway, or will that all become?
Oh, I'm sorry. Who am I working with? I'm sorry.
The gentleman who hays the field.
Oh,
I think that's up to the select board. So my understanding is that's an agreement that we get the field maintained and he gets the hay.
Yeah,
I would assume that once this is a construction zone, it'll be on the contractor, it'll be the contractor's property until it's done, and then whatever land is left, I think that's gonna be the select board
And there's 22 acres down below it, so I mean, there's a lot of land there.
determination, I don't know.
So I mean, I'm sure we can reinstitute it.
Is this commercial zone
It's municipal.
municipal? Oh,
It's, yeah.
Municipal,
I think it's 200 feet.
right, it's for municipal purposes.
No, I think it's commercial for 200 feet and the rest here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And did we protect that 200 feet of commercial or no?
So I don't know the, where's the map?
there's one commercial lot at the corner,
Right here?
right
Yeah.
there. And then down below it is conservation land, I've got a lot.
Oh, okay. And the commercial lot though isn't owned by the town?
It's
owned by me, I believe.
Okay,
It's 200 feet of commercial off of Route 16, everything else is rural residential.
okay,
But the zoning allows for this use with a subsidized permit, I think.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it fits into the scheme of things. I think if you open your eyes, think about that area, because like you, I go past those nice buildings. We should do something nice with it and continue on. I think this building complements it. And I'd be glad to, you know, bring the architect in, and see if we're deciding this. I'm looking at a cost-effective way, because we have a tax implication. And things that's, and so, you know, this town is 90-some% revenue on people, not on business. So anytime we want to do anything big, the people.
and what about the existing senior center? What will, let's say this project moves forward, will that become, like it's obviously municipally owned? Would they sell the property to?
Current thinking is that, well, if this gets approved through the town meeting and the vote, because it's got to pass both, the select board will start a committee, a reuse committee. Our recommendation in our local tribal talk would be, you know, have a good place for Dan and the maintenance department, because they need it. They could move into and use it immediately. There hasn't been a conversation of selling it. But, you know, there'll be a group that comes together. I think Dan and the highway department will probably have somebody on that committee.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
I'm wondering if
Parks-
the revenue from selling it might
There's
be
an
put towards.
there's an offset in future cost. Because Dan needs some, he
So
can't,
we need a garage for parks. One proposal is 300,000. So,
a couple years
you
ago.
know, this space would be wonderful. If, that said, if there was a buyer involved that was interested and this could be some future use or turned into housing, the problem is the existing senior center is on the same lot as the highway barn. So you'd have to somehow have enough frontage to split the lots or lease it out. You have a lot of septic water complications. You can't really expand. I think a change in use that would change the septic flow may or may not be possible. Like a big, if you wanted to turn that into who knows what. I don't know.
Right. No, I'm
But I
wondering,
do think, to your point, I think the town should explore all those options.
yeah, I'm just wondering if you go down Morrison Drive, I know we talked about that.
That's an option too.
Yeah.
Because I think, unfortunately, Morrison Drive is probably not commercially viable to sell because we can't sell it for less than its appraised value, which is
Right.
500-something thousand. So it's of no interest.
I just have one more question.
Sure.
So when Clough School has events, everybody parks over here in the field. How does that look now? I mean, how many parking spots does this accommodate? And then would there be some sort
If you
of?
think about where the stone wall is today up there, the senior center is beyond the stone wall. So all the parking things that the club people do now are still up there.
I had suggested
I'd love to
perhaps,
see this, I'd love to see this parking area.
perhaps all this grass can be some of this permeable, like this material that you can drive on it, but it can still be grass. That might be an option. Because I had asked that same question too, that even the events, this is our backup parking lot, but then again, you can't have people parking on your beautiful new shiny grass for your building.
And I think if I look at that area, because I know we park there for events. And that's all still gonna be there, that upper section above the stone wall. And so I think that'd be ample for right now.
I almost think we let it go, let it continue to be field over here and let the guy continue to hay certain areas of it just to maintain it.
I guess, yeah, so you're right, so
That'd be
this
kind of
kind of buffer, you're behind this whole line. Sorry, I can share this maybe, but we at least have to open this hearing, I think, and then we can come back, but how do I share? Like this, so this kind of tree line, that's this front line, right?
Yeah.
That you can,
Oh, there you go, yeah.
you'd be back here anyway.
Yeah,
So you're right, that maybe this could maintain space, and just leave it as a field and let him have it, and
Just do the.
have your driveway drive right through it.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty.
if you look at this here, we're over here.
Yeah,
So this whole piece is open and the thing comes down here and goes
Right.
over in this corner. And then here's that conservation here. And then here's additional acreage that goes down and
yeah, I
beyond.
mean, is like this and a weird kind of piece on it.
Could you just have the drive come in off of Route 16 and then get rid of this here? Why wouldn't, I know it's conservation you're saying, but why wouldn't?
There
you
is
come in on
an
Route
easement
16?
for a road to go through there.
Because this is a nightmare here with Clough
That'd be on this
School
plan.
twice a day.
Actually talking to Dave from Public Safety,
Mhm.
he feels the North Avenue is much safer than coming in off of Route 16. Just by traffic pattern DOT studies. He said, there will be an emergency easement in there if we needed to get fire or something in there. But he said we don't want to do it two-way because then you have people shortcutting the light. They just buzz right through it. But
Like me.
the recommendation from the public safety and DOT is to come in off of North Avenue.
Yeah,
So
I just feel like and I live on North Ave, so I'm up and down it every day, and I just feel like
Oh, yeah.
that's not accurate. I know that when I'm pulling out, when my kids went to Clough, or if I'm going to Charles River, and I'm pulling out, it is like, you just inch out and then you just hope that no one hits you coming up from here or there, like that's how it
I
is.
was incorrect.
So I
and the
disagree.
lot is also gonna depend on how that intersection is handled
Yeah,
by.
right. That's a great point.
I haven't seen
This
this
street over is all private.
recently, so,
They've been talking about it forever.
yeah,
They
as
just
long as
keep
they don't
pushing it
have
up.
it right on red there, I think,
Oh, yeah, no question.
So Phil, I had a question, hopefully, it's not a concern, but I was curious to know how, because we're looking at a public space and a senior space, Obviously, the seniors have a very full schedule. They've got to do what they've got to do. They operate on volunteers. As a town, would the town consider somebody to handle the balance of that,
There could be. If you look at Amy's budget now, she's looking to try to add another half-time person to give her a full-time administrator.
Yeah.
And we talked about to Danny briefly about this recreational parks.
Yeah.
Site, the schedule of recreational activities. We got a system in town, we just do that.
Yeah,
The building itself, though, we probably would start begin to funnel it in through the administrative staff, give them a tool. And then there's a lot to be done, but we could phase into, and we may need another person.
yeah,
But whenever we think about scheduling, the reason it's all focused on the senior center is it's a single-use building.
right,
You can't do two things at a time.
right,
So as soon as you do two things, the person could have a schedule that says, okay, conference room A, conference room B, classroom B, event.
right.
So they could just, so we could, and I'd like to be able to automate that someday to make it more sense.
Yeah.
I think, I anticipate probably in 26, 27, Amy's probably gonna need an additional volunteer coordinator
Yeah,
to maximize the volunteer, that's post-build.
yeah,
So I believe that's gonna happen. I think her volunteers will be utilized more. She has an army.
yeah, she does, yeah. No, I think, I think, to me, it's important to make sure that there's a good relationship between the public component and the senior component, so that there's not.
I would love to,
conflict.
I would love to see somebody like my daughter, who's raising two kids, or some other daughter or son, be the lead person on that, representing it. Because they bring in a whole viewpoint.
Yeah, definitely,
Because we do you get older, you get older. We're gonna protect the needs of the seniors, but if you take a look at this side over here, there's a lot of stuff that we already do, 10 to 20 organizations.
Oh, yeah.
It's a food pantry, and a food pantry is not just for seniors. It has VNA nurse and health clinics, durable medical, veteran support, and that's not just those seniors.
What is Upton offering in their community center? Do we know?
What they do in their community center, they have, these facilities get scheduled by the same administrative staff in the front reception area. And their staff's about the same size as Randy.
It's a library, right?
It's a library, yeah. There's two staffs in the library, but it is divided structurally.
Mhm.
And the senior center, if you would, the portion of their building, they have someone, they use that on the weekends. They just, and they charge a nominal fee, I forgot what it was, $100 or $200 a day, if you wanted to use the full room and kitchen. And if you wanted to go get a birthday party somewhere, you're gonna spend more than
I
that.
love that.
They should maybe just put a playground in here too, like Upton.
Well, Upton's playground was,
If you want to gear it towards families too. then you should-
I'm open for that, but we'd have to get CPA funds. Same way that.
Well, at Dance House, there's endless
There's,
CPA.
there's money, but I think,
Well, the thing is, when we first, a couple of select board people suggested we talk about a multi-phase project. You look at the front lot up there, up close to North Ave, and what would you like to do with that? Envision that. You take a look at road down there, and could you put other activities down there? Could you also go down into maybe, some minor commercial or senior housing down below? And all those things you could do, but if you build all that into a project,
Right.
you're never gonna get that.
I think that you'll get great approval if you try, not the playground, I was just teasing because there's an elementary school across the street. But I think that there's so many families in town that are just like begging for a turf field, anyway, you could build that in here.
Actually, I don't think the slope is conducive to it.
I know you need to level it or something.
I wouldn't have mind push for that and have CPA fund the turf
yeah,
or something.
CPA cannot pay for turf.
Oh, yeah, turf field.
We can pay for all the site work, but not the actual turf. That's one of the things with the law.
That's a couple $100,000 or $300,000.
Yeah. That's very,
Big bucks.
that's,
But, I'm game for that. I had a meeting, I grew up here trying to find a field for the kids to play on. Before Grover, and I used to coach with Grover, God rest his soul. before they named that place for them down there. We couldn't play soccer down there, so we'd schlep around with our bags, trying to find someplace in Misto or someplace.
You weren't bumping into another organization.
I think, unfortunately, I think
Sorry.
there's somebody waiting for us. We actually have a plan for a store.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions, give us a shout. We have an open house on the 24th. You'll hear a lot of the same stuff, but you're welcome to join. I'd ask your support if it fits within your psyche, and I will take that back to the committee. Just look at the harbor. I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, the Hardy board.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to that, just logically to get this number down a bit, we said we got to skinny it down.
Right.
I like when I go shopping, something. Okay, thanks, everybody, appreciate
Thank
your
you
time.
very
Thanks.
much.
You guys can turn
All
my
of your
back
hard
up.
work.
It's not mine, everybody.
Yeah, you guys are quite a team.
That's a good one. And that's the spirit of men, I like, all people from different
Something else.
disciplines.
Yep, exactly.
And before historic goes, we have one other update. So we got 2 bids in the record room. One was 136,000, the other was 153,000. Both appear to be within our budget, which is awesome. Next Wednesday, the select board is going to be discussing and awarding the contract.
Thanks.
I don't think I can attend. I might try and call in depending on the timing. If enough people want to attend, I can post it. But I guess it's really their decision.
Is there any
David,
way for us to take a look at the
So-
bids?
I will ask for the actual bids. David forwarded, the last email I got, David was sending them to the architect to review them. I think you were on that email to make sure they were both, did all the things they were supposed to do. I will request that we get copies of them because if we have concerns or comments, we should share them.
Is Armando gonna get a copy of this as well?
I have no idea, and I think perhaps we need to have a conversation, and maybe that's an offline conversation or a conversation with this group and the new interim town administrator. David did agree to stay on and help with this project since he wanted to see it through, which is great. So David's done, if you don't know, or interim, he's done as of today. And they have a new interim. Hopefully we will announce him at some point. I don't know, I'm not quite sure where we stand. This is really, really tight. We have very little time to slam this out before we hit June 30th and lose the grant. I'm gonna get a quote, we have to put up a sign. I'm gonna get a price on the sign. It's probably gonna be a couple $100. There's paperwork, whatever. So I don't know if we wanna wait and see what happens Wednesday, or if we wanna, I don't know, I think they need to award a contract ASAP. But I think I'll see, so if we can get copies of the bids. And then I mentioned, I don't know, either Armando or Petrovic, not both, we want to retain to supervise the actual construction. I think that's a decision we probably can make.
And is there money in the budget to retain them?
So
Was that in
I have been not fully in the loop on this whole project. I am not clear as to what was part of the, unfortunately, we didn't really have a clear agreement with Armando either.
Yeah.
So we may need to sit down with him or whoever and ask him to quote out exactly his expenses.
Yeah.
To continue to supervise or consult on this project.
Yeah.
All I know is we have 174,000 available. I don't know if we paid any bills against that. I know there is an invoice for work done to date, pair the specs. And then we have these 2 bids. They were alternates. Bids of the alternates don't make sense to me, so I would defer to the experts to explain it. One was 29,000, the other was 4,500. So, and it was all the windows and then repointing the exterior facade. But those alternates, we can go back to CPA for. in the fall,
Yeah.
And those aren't necessarily, those are critical.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have to, well,
Really,
it wouldn't have to be done at the time that the
because they're not gonna be part of the
foundations is being done, all right. And I guess also, we maybe need to get in touch with Ross and explained that if we continue to get water issues, which we've had, we might not be able to do this in a time frame. And this has been all year. It's not like
Yeah.
it just started.
Unfortunately, my understanding is that on June 30th, that money goes away, full stop, doesn't matter if the world ends. It's a state budget, it's state law, we have no control. So we're kind of, I mean, I could be wrong, maybe there's some provision, but I know with other projects, they went for something with Jen, that she had to fight them to get reimbursed on something over a deadline issue. So,
And we know it's with Mass Historic.
yeah, no, I guess it's some other project, just similar idea of a state grant. So I don't know,
All right, well,
it's gonna be interesting.
should
Hey,
put
thanks,
that-
everybody, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions, just send them over.
You got it.
I didn't mention that, I have not been over that basement.
Well, every time our money's been out there, it turns out.
Yeah, I don't think it works, and the pump is shot,
He says it's about the same amount of water.
so, anyway, so that's that, I think, it'll be on the agenda on Wednesday. And I will email, hopefully I'll get an answer. I'll email him as well and ask for copies of the complete bids. Maybe he'll answer me.
Yeah, I thought so.
I mean, nothing against David's been amazing, I think he's done.
Yeah,
Done,
no,
done, done,
and I
done,
get
done,
that. I
vacation.
think he wants to, be bogged down, and he shouldn't have to be. We should be able to, we should be in a position where we can finish.
Well, I think once the contract's awarded, it should go, it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, I say that now.
Sorry, there's no water. Oh, Lord.
All right. So I think if that's it, we probably need to adjourn historic and switch to this hearing. This poor person has been waiting through our.
All right, so I move to adjourn the Historic Commission meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess
Opposed? Right.
we'll have to set a meeting date. We can email and figure something out.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be probably soon.
Yeah, I mean, I have very limited availability in the next couple of weeks, unless we can meet. Oh, you can't meet during the day, right?
Yeah,
Friday afternoon.
I could do Friday afternoons.
But let's
Your
see
schedule.
what we find out from the select board.
I'm just thinking, depending on what the trickle down information is on the records room, we probably want to get together and make sure we know how we're gonna move into the next steps without, without the players, in place and what needs to be picked up and supervised.
So you have a quorum without me, so I will post for Wednesday. That would be my suggestion, is that should be, you should meet with the select board on Wednesday, assuming you can attend.
The time,
They start at 6:30, all bets are off as to when it'll make it to the agenda. I was here till 9:30 last night. Do it before 7 o'clock, I can call in, but. I always post it.
can we,
It'll be covered,
yeah,
all right.
anybody would like to join me? Why not?
6:30, you said?
6:30 upstairs or remote on the agenda that I'll post at the last minute on Monday.
Ooh, I'm good plan.
All right. So now, sorry, we should switch to this public hearing for 31 Washington Street.
10 o'clock.
No, we're good. That's why I asked you about it. If we can historic grandfather clock, we could place it. It'd be nice.
7:26.
Yeah.
Right on time.
Okay, so we have a part of the district, so I believe we have a representative for the project here. Hopefully you're there. Sorry that it took so long.
That's okay, thank you.
I think I emailed out the most recent stuff that was sent.
Yeah, I just had it up here.
I guess we probably should, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing, which I can't find, so I'm gonna read out the thing. So this is, open the public hearing for 31 Washington Street. Notice is given, it was in the paper, letters were sent to the abutters as required. And they're requesting a certificate for, ground mounted solar for a property within the district. Somebody's gonna second,
I second that.
okay. And then call for a vote.
No, that's,
All those in
that's
favor?
right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so actually, so you guys aren't on the district commission, so you don't.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
You could be though, you could be. All right,
So I'm just looking over the attachments that you had sent. And I
Can you
mean,
put those up on this?
yeah, I can, or if, I don't know if, I can't see your name, Greta, if you want to, if you have stuff you want to share, I can put these up as well. It looked like there was a plan that kind of showed the site, which I think might be helpful and all the things.
Sure, I could share my screen. Hold on one second.
It was easier, but
Are you talking about this one?
yeah.
The one you sent to us?
Yeah, the most recent, I think they revised and sent out some updated documents. I think that's the one that she just put up here.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay, so last time we met, you needed a little bit more information in regards to the ground mount and the location. I tried to have this relocated farther back on the property. Unfortunately, it's already almost like 130 feet behind the house, and when you get too much farther back, the electricity that it generates does not get all the way to the house, and it kind of goes down with the amount that it should be producing. So we had to keep it here. The ground mount is about 240 feet set back from the street location and about 110 to 120 feet behind the house. There is like a little shed back there. It looks like a little wood shed that they might keep wood right there. That would be right in front of it. This is that first photo that we have right here, showing how far back it would be from the street. It does face south, so it's not perpendicular to the home. It's going to be kind of a little bit angled, so it gets the most sun azimuth to produce the most electricity for the home. There is going to be a trench that would need to be dug up in order to do the electrical conduit from the ground mount to the home, to the meter, where the meter is on the home. So this view here is right behind where that little woodshed is. This is like where the woodshed is from the side and how far away it would be back here. And again, this third small photo here just kind of shows where it is in comparison to the back of the house, where the well is, where the leach field might be, things we have to avoid when we are doing ground mounts. The other item that you had looked for is what it would kind of look like from the street. So I did pull up some street views and did my best in regards to where it would be located. Coming down Washington Street with the property on your left-hand side, it will be kind of minimal because that's kind of the back of the solar array will be facing that way. It's not so much the solar panels, but it'll be, again, the 240 feet off from Washington Street. This side, as you're heading the opposite way on Washington Street with the home on the right-hand side, again, the ground mount will be up behind the home, behind this little wood shed here, back off the property. We attempted to design one on the roof. I did ask our designers for a mock-up. The thing is with this, I don't know if you can see this, but there's 8 different little roof sections with all these hips and valleys that are on the roof. Unfortunately, we'd only be able to put one panel on each of these top roof arrays here due to fire setback and fire code and pathways that are needed for in case of emergency or fire. They did try to design on the lower roof section. However, same thing kind of happens. That's kind of like this little area here. You have all these egress windows. In case of a fire, by code, you cannot put solar panels in front of a window like that in case that was the only window to get out if the home ever caught on fire. So it's not really possible to actually put the solar array on the roof because there's limited locations. Plus, you have to have the fire pathways and have all those windows open. So it really limits to what their offset would be if they were to put these solar panels on the home. They would not get as much they would not get as many panels in order to reduce their costs for the utility bill, which is the ultimate goal here is to reduce the utility bill as rates increase.
Just what was the size of the solar panels again?
The solar panel itself, they're 72 inches. It is, they are angled at a 35-degree angle. It's going to be 4 rows of 7 panels across. It's about 42 feet wide.
42 feet wide. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, can you confirm if the electricity that was being generated from this 48-foot wide panel, can you confirm that it's specifically and solely for this property only, or are they generating electricity and then for elsewhere?
We only do residential, so it's only for this property.
So it would only be for this property?
We only do residential solar. That would be more of a commercial size if you share it that way. This is strictly just for their meter, just for their utility bill.
Okay.
For what it's worth, I did have a conversation with Dylan Lindholm, the assistant planner, and our zoning does prohibit that type of solar. It can only be sized to serve the electric load of the property.
Okay.
Now, granted, that would be up to planning to enforce, and unfortunately in this town.
In residential, in national grid territory, you cannot produce more than 10 kilowatts AC coverage, and that's the max that this system would produce. Utility actually has a cap, so it's considered a small scale solar system. Anything under like the 10 kilowatts usually falls into that category. When you're looking for medium to large size, you're looking at 250 kilowatt AC type of, that you see the solar fields for. That's not in this instance. It's just one array that would reduce the utility bill for this homeowner for their home only.
Okay.
Can I ask, so you might have just answered a question we were trying to figure out. So this project, it said it's 11.40 kilowatts DC, but it's 10 kilowatts AC, which is National Grid's limit.
Yes.
That makes this zoning make so much more sense. Okay. Because we have that numbers in zoning, but of course it doesn't specify AC or DC. And we were trying to figure out so what you just said, so our zoning matches Grid's.
So it would follow the nameplate on the inverter is the AC amount. And as you can see, this inverter is a grow watt 10,000 watts, which is 10 kilowatt. So that's where that kilowatt comes from, is from the size of the inverter, the nameplate on the inverter that actually transfers the energy into the home.
Have the abutters had anything to say about it?
I received no
Okay.
written or emailed comments. Nobody's in attendance.
Okay.
So were they just informed of the hearing, or were they given the specs?
So as they were sent, the stock letter we send out basically just says, you're a butter to this project. It just says proposed ground mounted solar. Please check here for more information. We're not sending them the plans, or I don't think we've ever done that for any of our historic district. We just say, here's a public hearing to discuss the proposed sign, the proposed new windows. If you have any questions or comments, you can send back in writing.
So it's about 4 rows, about 40 feet long, so it's a pretty sizable.
No, it's not 4 rows like back to back. It's 4 rows up. So if you look at this, it'll look just like this. It's all together on one.
Oh, got it.
One
Yep.
box.
Okay, all right.
So it's basically like the front of a roof
Yeah, all right.
on the ground.
No, it's, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your description, so no.
Sorry,
it's
yeah, no worries.
far less, I think impactful, than 4 rows.
Do we have to make a decision today?
A what?
Are we making a decision today on this, or
Well, I think
can we convene?
it's up to you. I mean, we have, if you feel that we need to continue this, if we need more information, or if we are comfortable issuing a certificate. I do think, and and I think we screwed up last time in terms of, I'm not clear if this is a certificate of appropriateness or a hardship certificate. In this case, maybe it's appropriateness because it's whatever. I think those windows, we actually should have issued a certificate of hardship because he was saying they want to install replica windows, but it's not the end of the world. I think it's just a nomenclature. Now, I was rereading the bylaws, like, that's probably what this is
Well,
supposed to be.
or do we wanna say hardship, because ideally in the district, we'd like to see, I think to me, I'd like to see solar in an area that's not visible, but because they can't put it on their roof,
That's,
it's a hardship.
I mean, it's hard because there is a state law that basically says we are limited, we can't unreasonably restrict solar. Now, ground mounted is a little different than rooftop, but here, like you just said, here they've shown that it
I guess
can
to
be done.
set a precedence within the district, do we wanna say it's a hardship because that they couldn't, they couldn't actually generate what they needed on their roof because of the way the roof was shaped? I guess for me, I feel like if we go about an appropriateness, now everybody's gonna say, well, I want a ground mount.
Right.
And they did it on Washington, so that's why I feel like we should do a hardship.
Yeah, I agree.
Can the commission, and I know this is probably out of your purview, but can you make recommendations for screening from roadside so that it's not as
I mean, you
visible,
can,
or-
but if in order to generate electricity for, what size house is this, like a 3,000 square foot house, 2,800, something like that?
Yeah, I believe so. Let me look up the,
So if you have a house like that and they need a 48-foot long panel, that's a big screen, right? So
I mean,
Yeah, but I think if you did like a mixed,
Well,
yes.
visual spot, as you're approaching, a mixed, evergreen, like 4 or 5, that would not interrupt the solar.
Yeah, if I understood it, the panels are faced away from, so like from the street, when looking at the back, it would be nice if there was an opportunity to do something, so you're not just looking at the
Oh,
underneath an
100%.
ugly
Maybe
steel
you would
structure.
decide on their own that it's
Yeah.
more aesthetically
Right.
pleasing not to pull up to the house and see the solar screen,
Right.
but
And I think in this case, they're fortunate where they have the land. I guess I'm thinking
Right.
the majority of the homes in the district are on, at best, a quarter of an acre.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's no room, but they could come and say, again, I feel like I want to do this as a hardship.
I will add, there are some restrictions in zoning to where ground mounted is allowed. So I believe I forget the exact numbers, I think the majority of the smaller lots would not be allowed to have ground mounted. You can end your screen share if you want to, I don't know if that,
I mean, I help but think about the house on North Ave
right.
with the
With
solar
that, right,
panels,
right
like
smack in
right in
front.
the street. And I guess that's my only fear is that we're.
The minimum lot size required for ground mounted solar in any residential district shall be 5 acres. Which is lot,
I think we have 6.8 acres here.
and there are some setbacks, so at least, but I agree with your point, I think I would look at this as it's a hardship where it's not ideal, but in this case, maybe it's the only option. I guess we
Right.
should be, I'm thankful that this person bought this property and was willing to maintain it, and
yeah,
we
Right,
didn't lose another historic home,
right.
absolutely.
but.
And again, it's not going to be up in your face right on the street that you're going to see it every single time. It's almost 240 feet back from the street. If you think of that, that's more than half of a football field. Back off the street, so it's not like right up in your face where you're going to be seeing it.
Right.
That close.
Yeah, it's like right there.
So we screen,
You're still gonna see like no.
You'll see it.
So I mean, we can make a recommendation that they try and screen it along with a certificate of hardship. Bruce, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you that it should be a hardship.
Okay.
I think it can set precedent.
Do you have any thoughts?
All the stuff you learn.
Nothing beyond what's already been said.
Okay. I mean, I'm all for issuing a hardship with a recommendation to screen.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, I don't think it's, even if it's not the best thing,
Again, they have some, they'll push it back.
right? So I would make a motion that we would issue a certificate of hardship that, because there's no alternative to put it in a less visible place.
Mhm.
that we would issue certificate of hardship for this project, provided that they, you know, if there's any attempt to do some plantings or screenings to shield it from the street side,
Right.
and don't interfere with the function of the solar. So somebody's gonna say,
I second that.
and then we.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
I think we might be supposed to close the hearing first, but
These are things I do not know.
I don't do that one. So we'll close this out. Actually, I mean, if you have a minute, I can do this and you can sign it before you
Yeah.
leave. And then, you know, permit will be able to move forward.
Did you hear that, Greta?
Oh, I did. Thank you. So we're all set. So, and then you'll have the, just
I'll do all this.
put some type of vegetation in there.
Yeah. And it looks like once I do this, the permit will get issued, so hopefully on Monday, Gail will follow up and they'll, because that's the only step remaining, is the permit, or that is review.
Okay.
Thanks so much for joining us again.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Let me just add this in, so we're saying. Oh, okay.
All right, so while you're doing that, so 24 Maple Street, so it looks like the homeowner emailed Jane about,
Oh, yeah.
about, is it a
Siding.
renovation and then they want a side or?
Yeah.
Actually, the process, we are actually in the process of discussing issues surrounding siding, I'm gonna let you, Dan. Yeah, way down.
Actually, it's the house next door, the
Yeah.
one in question.
Right.
Yeah, so she's, yeah, planning a renovation. They're still finalizing the plans, but she was looking for some preliminary guidance from the commission. And yeah, I mean, this is exactly what's supposed to happen. So
Right, we have currently hired an engineer and an architect. The architect is finishing up plans and they will be sent to the engineer. I just increased my tech side to plan for a new septic as well as to the historic commission for approval. All right, so her biggest concern is
Yeah,
siding.
she said just back to me, as I said, the siding is my biggest concern. The house itself is a historical building, pretty old. Most of the outer walls do not have insulation.
Mhm.
For another reason for us needing to redo the siding, short of tearing up the inside, that's the only option. We're not really altering the rest of the inside, aside from where it would connect to the new portions of the house. The architect's in the final stage of our plans, so hopefully I'll have them soon, and we hired an engineer. So I knew, like, this is a question too, like, sometimes there's talk, like, if you do an addition, you wanna set the addition off, so the addition is new versus old, like what they did at the police station.
But that's not a requirement.
No, it's a, you know, so in this case, you know, should they build an addition that just matches the house? I mean, I don't know.
Why don't we, can you pull it up on Google Street View?
Do we know what the siding even is?
All right, sorry, I want.
I think
Well,
it's
24
It's
Maple.
plywood,
Yeah.
because that came up to me, well, if they sign in the house next door, why can't we?
Yeah.
Somebody got a whole can of worms.
Well, that's the problem, and we,
Did you hear from the building inspector?
so we did send him, Deb sent him an email and
I
he's
did
not
not.
responded at all. He was supposed to get back to me about something else, and I was gonna ask him.
Did he ever say anything to you about receiving the email?
No, I asked him about, I wanted to look at something in this building, and he said, oh, I'll give you a call on Monday and meet with you, and then I was gonna call.
Is it possible he just didn't read the email?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying.
so which house is it? Is this house right with the man in front?
How can we
I'm trying to get people to.
go forward with that without him being here? And what recourse do we have about having him come in and meet with us?
I think, I mean, we could send another email, follow up with the select board,
I'd love to have his input.
Yeah,
I think that it's important.
that other house you identified too, that's still all ripped up, it's got blue tarp, so
Yeah,
there's clearly more than a repair, so they should, you know, and maybe, actually, I was gonna ask about this, maybe that
that
property, we
was
should be
in
sending
the
a letter.
Yep, and that was in the email to the
Just
building
saying, it's
inspector,
come to our
so.
attention that you have construction going on that affects the exterior architectural feature, please submit a permit to come see us. Cause this house here, I'll try and screen share this too. I don't know,
Which one is 24 Maple?
I think it's the one, keep going up past the White House with the ramp in front.
My hand is-
Yeah, I got it.
I'm driving up
Yeah,
the
I got it.
street.
Can you just
Okay.
be quiet to come to some of these meetings?
Have a seat.
So
Yeah.
this house
This
is
is
the
the
one,
one that's been torn up.
I think we should send them a letter
It's been like that for a while.
and tell them,
Something's
that,
going on
you know,
over there.
I'm hoping they're just repairing it, but I think we should confirm with them, because as we've learned, people
Do things.
just do what they want.
So they had contacted the commission
They
a
did.
long time
Oh, okay.
Right.
and said, what can we do? You know, we want to change the color of the house. And I'm like, well, then we don't have any restrictions on that. So that really seemed to be, you know, a non-issue. And I think that's where they're still continuing to,
Yeah.
because they, I mean, they've stripped the paint off that, right?
That was a big question for John, is what triggers the need for a permit? You know, I can go patch a hole in my front door, no problem, but
Right.
when am I supposed to get a permit? Because unfortunately, unless they do the right thing and call us, unless they pull a permit, we have no idea, unless we're
Right,
driving around.
Right, it's
Right.
definitely.
Because we're not, it's not gonna flag us.
Yeah,
Um,
But like,
Switch
people
this.
aren't gonna pull permits when they're patching two pieces of siding.
Yeah.
So like, there has to be like a minimum.
Well, and that's what
Square
happened
footage
with
requirement.
Maple Street, is they
Yeah.
said repair, then they went and just slapped up and did the whole thing in vinyl, and.
And they said repair with new
Shouldn't they have
material
to come
too.
before this board and just let us know what they're doing? I mean, the fact that there is a board.
They should.
Yeah.
What-
I
so
think
what is
that
what's our purpose?
I think that it might be our fault that this happened. Because maybe when it came through, we should have said, like, been more, we shouldn't have been so trusting, I guess. When they said that they were gonna, you know, do a repair with a replacement, we trusted them that that's what they were gonna do,
Just
but
the
now
fact-
there's no, we don't, it's done, it's for sale, we've reached out to the building inspector about it and he hasn't
Yeah.
said anything.
I do think going forwards, other than a re-roof that's a cut and dry roof with a roof, we should now, everybody needs to come talk to us. Maybe they don't need a hearing, but I think Ruth is
You
right.
get
Yeah.
those, right, Dan?
I'm getting those, and I
So-
think at this point, we.
Can you reach out and tell these people that we want to see them before they do anything?
Unfortunately, I think it's too late for 26 unless John comes back to us, unless at this point we wanna, I mean, we can try and ask them to come to a meeting. Whether they tell us to get lost, and then, you know, unfortunately, it may be too late in that one. We're gonna make them rip off all the vinyl and redo it.
Well, I don't know,
We
but
could.
what does it say to the other people in the neighborhood?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I would also argue that, you know, similar to ZBA, things are not precedent setting here. Each decision stands on its own. I think going forwards, absolutely, we need to be far more aggressive with these because they are just gonna assume, or, you know, whether it was intentional or accidental.
It was intentional.
But like I say, if someone else comes, what grounds do we have to say, no, you can't side it once this other house has been sided?
I think we flat out would say that the regulations are what they are, and unfortunately, this applicant broke the rules, and
Right.
I mean, we do, yeah, the bylaw has penalties, we can issue fines, I think it's $300 a day. Whether that would be effective or worthwhile, or, you know, there's something to be done, I mean, this house was difficult, because the front of it had a different siding, I think it had vinyl siding on the side, and it had these original
The two ends had
things on the
vinyl,
front.
Yeah,
the back and the front did not.
cedar shingles.
Yes.
And
it was
they-
just the front.
And they just went and did it all over in new siding.
Yeah.
So how do you guys feel about, and, you know, has there been any, you know, discussion about, you know, what the modern materials to replicate?
Like a hardy board.
Well, that is,
Yeah.
That's it. It's not vinyl siding.
Yeah.
Like it's a hardy board, or you're gonna use cedar and you're gonna have to paint it, you know.
What's a
every 5
hardy
years.
board?
A hardy, so, I'm gonna pull up hardy board.
yeah, it's like cement board.
Yes, so it's basically a paintable board
Like,
and it looks like, you know, clapboard siding.
Mhm.
And it
And
looks like shingles too.
And it
doesn't
doesn't-
Get it?
it
what's
doesn't
the actual
rot.
material?
Yeah, it's not gonna rot. And you're not gonna have to paint it as frequently. Or, I'm not sure if at all, but it's expensive. And so you're gonna get a lot of people in here with the hardship. Saying, well, you know, I have termite damage and everything's rotten and I can't afford hardy board, so I'm
Fiber
gonna.
cement siding.
So we're
it's-
gonna have to suggest cedar,
But for
clapboard.
what he's paying, charging for that house, he should be able to put.
Or you put up wood siding
I
and
actually don't think he's getting,
proper,
it's still sitting there.
you know, you can always re-side a house with wood.
Well, that's what I mean, with cedar, regular cedar siding, and that's affordable, but you're gonna have to maintain it, but that's part of living in a historic district, you're going to
Exactly, that's
maintain
the
your
choice
home.
they make, yeah.
So I've been keeping a running list of potential recommendations for our zoning or our design, and it's funny, like, you must be talk to Rich, because we kind of touched on this in the last hearing too.
Yeah.
About providing more guidance to, for someone, or like this, like Katie that's coming and saying, what do you do? Because her house, I stopped the screen share, her house is the same thing, it's got like cedar shake on the side and something on the front.
Yeah, she's good.
So what are they supposed to do? Let me move over again. What is the appropriate historical approach to fix this? I don't know.
Right.
That might or might not be asbestos on the front, or that looks like
Well, I don't think
the
that's.
side, the side is shingles.
That's not asbestos.
Rich, the other was asbestos.
We have a vinyl shingle look on our house that actually looks pretty decent. And, it's great at replicating, although you've got more like the Cape Cod style with the weathered look on this house.
So she's wondering if she,
Like, what should she do?
for the entirety of the home, or is so.
I don't know, I think, it sounds like they're building an addition, so maybe they're open to leaving the front alone, I kind of.
I would just continue to match, I would recommend that she continue to match the clapboard. That's there, I would not.
So maybe do hardy board on the sides or some sort of, or wood siding, but not
Yeah.
that matches the style on the front.
Yeah,
You'd think, I don't know if I can see the other side, it's copper.
what is the age of this home?
And you guys don't have any issue with the ramp coming down.
What's that?
You don't have any issue with the ramp coming off the house, do you?
No, because that's not, that's not an original, that was an accommodation that was made over time.
Oh, I can't get up, hang on, I get it.
And there's so many things, right, that are changed over time, so you have to look at it and say, okay, how can we try and,
Right.
that's why I asked Dan, okay, what year was this built? And now we can make
What
recommendations
is the
based
date?
on that.
It's Geneva's house, hang on, it's
Yeah.
coming.
Let me pull up, and it's been 6 seconds, alright.
All right, 1890.
And then, what I would love to do is when people come to us and ask these questions, if there is any sort of, because Maple Street, there are so many pictures maybe in the society. Do we say, hey, this is what your house looked like in 1890, so, maybe in keeping with that, let's shoot for, X, Y, and Z recommendations, I don't know.
Great idea.
Well, that's something we should incorporate in the guidance, or even, and that's how, if we have pictures.
That's gonna be hard
in the future,
sometimes, but.
We have examples of different things in the district, there's probably tons of work that can be done in these design guidelines if someone had the time,
Right.
to,
Right.
we have
Time.
there's awnings, mailboxes, et
Would it be
cetera.
worth it to
amazing how
have the
much-
people come after and just send a letter? And then you can ask these questions. In the form of a letter, you can't,
Well, I think
it'd be great for her.
Well, I think there's
to
three
say,
different
let's-
things, so that 24 Maple, she needs to come to us with a
Yeah.
formal application at some point.
Especially since
I was
it's the
hoping,
whole
you know.
architectural design, we're gonna want.
In the interim though, she's certainly welcome to it, and I had suggested if she could attend tonight, just to chat with us, so we can have her come to a meeting before you start the hearing, so she can get guidance and provide to her architect. Because then we open the hearing, we just say, okay, we've already approved this, here's the plan, everybody's good with it, great. That other house up Maple Street with the tarp, in that case, that doesn't have any permits, I would probably suggest we just send them a letter and say, hey, we're noticing this work happening, please be advised the historic district requires a certificate for any exterior architectural modification, please file an application for a permit. Or come talk to us. 26, is it worth talking to them at this point? We can, but unfortunately, I'm not sure what remedy we have. They could rip off the vinyl siding on the front of the house and side it differently.
I don't
Or
see.
they can
why
tell us to
you
get
couldn't ask-
lost.
Why you couldn't ask them to do
Me
that.
too. I agree, because I do think it's setting up a precedent.
And just, I wouldn't be surprised if they come back with lawyers and say, get lost.
Right.
This is true.
And unfortunately, as we've learned with the Historic Commission, there's not a big appetite to fight those sorts of fights when it comes to that, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And the whole thing, it's a design guideline, it's not a design mandate, right? So, right, that, the name of that alone, like legally, and I mean, you're going to law school, right? So like, it's hard to have a leg to stand on because someone's gonna say, this is a guideline.
Right,
You're,
right.
you're offering guidance. You're not mandating this, right? So I think it's just, it's a tough fight. But I think if we had gone about it, you know, when creating the districts and said, you know, these are mandates and we're not offering design guidelines, no one would have gone for it.
Right.
We wouldn't have
right.
a historic district.
But you still have the tool of being able to say, no, we do not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree, and I feel like these people definitely knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
From looking at their viewpoint application, and what they had said, the language that they had used, so. They said they were replacing rotten siding with the same material. I mean, come on,
And then,
you didn't. But,
it's, I don't know, we should, it would be nice if John would get back to us, I think, you know, in my conversation with him, I think he has a lot of perspective that would be really helpful for us.
370
I'm gonna fight him.
no,
I think we just need some guidance on.
Is he required to come to any of these meetings? I mean, he works for the town, I mean.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, he came to the demo delay thing. For the record,
Does he serve on the historic district board?
No, he's not a resident, he's from Milford,
Oh, okay.
and we could rope Tim into it. He owns historic buildings.
It just would be nice if,
Yeah.
you know, we could have some representation.
I mean, he came to that meeting about tearing down the building behind St. Michael's.
Right.
He was right there that night. And still nothing's been done about that.
yeah, when I went to change my.
I think he was
my
there
list with all that.
to express his concern about the
Yes.
stability of the
Yes, which is still standing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank John Dudley and some particle boards.
Yeah, that garage, that was such a critical hazard, but it's still.
Had to be down by like 20.
I think about it every time when I drive past it. I'm like, that was ridiculous. That was so rushed.
I'm just gonna keep doors on the front.
Yeah.
They're gonna need it later, I know they will.
I said something to one of the other select, it's unfortunate that we don't communicate this stuff,
Right.
and.
He only comes to the selectmen's meeting, if they require him, right? So they can- So do we have to ask the selectmen to ask him to come?
Well, you know, maybe it's worth emailing him again, just say, hey, you know, we really would like
I
an
mean,
opportunity to chat with you. And if he doesn't respond, maybe follow up with the interim town administrator or the select board and see what happens.
And it might be a good idea to
I know it's
keep
busy, but
a relationship with him in kind of an advisory role. This is what we're looking at. What would you recommend? You know, because he could be an asset, you know, to the group and maybe help, you know, guide certain things or have information, you know, that isn't readily available.
When would we like to meet next? Because that would be part of my next, this email to him now.
so I don't know, my guess is it'll be a few months before we get anything from this other property, if she's still waiting on engineering. It's probably quite a
I mean,
ways
we
to
could
go.
still, I mean. we could
Which is,
still-
I'm thinking of timing, I have I mean, you can see here, I literally am booked every single day.
When we go to, when are we gonna meet once a month?
Yeah, when's the commission meeting?
We were kind of doing the 1, 2, 3, 4th Monday, but I think you have a conflict on Mondays.
Which is coming to a close very soon,
So
so I
we've got,
apologize for
Um,
derailing that.
But there's,
So,
on the 22nd is a big public hearing for bylaws, so I would suggest we do not meet on that date.
On the 27th.
26th is the public hearing for the groundwater protection bylaw and whatever else is happening, planning.
We meet on Mondays.
You know, I
Oh, you guys are gonna meet Friday, the 26th.
mean, at this point, my next night that I'm available to have a meeting is April 23rd. Actually, possibly the 15th, although I don't think we're supposed to meet on holidays. I'm holding the 8th, but the 8th is an option, but we gotta see what happens with the water.
But what are you talking about, that it's a holiday?
April 15th is, isn't that
Oh,
President's Day or?
What about
Patriots Day.
Tuesday, April 23rd, you said that you have.
That's the only day I can meet in the next month, between now and possibly the 8th.
How does Tuesday, the
So if you wanna-
23rd sound?
Hold that and see what happens. I mean, we could meet, so there's a planning board's meeting at 6 on the 22nd. I don't know, I may attend that, but I don't have to with Monday, but it sounds like you can't do Mondays.
How about Tuesday at like
You could do that, or we
6?
could do the 29th. Oh, that's Monday too, that's now.
Tuesday, the 23rd, I mean.
Yeah, I would, if that works for other people. Oh, did you have a problem on Tuesdays, Ruth? Or is that?
Oh, she's bowling.
I am. Last night at bowling, but I would bowl off if.
No.
The 29th, like my last day of class is the 23rd. So
Okay.
Mondays will, like I'm good after that. So if the 29th is viable, we're.
I would say the 29th. 'cause, I mean,
All
that's.
right, Monday at
And then I don't know if
the
it's.
29th at 6 or 7?
Wait, which one is this? Is this
For the
district?
district?
This would be the district, if you want to do the same thing, I mean, 6 and 7, or.
Back to back.
Oh, sure. Fine. I mean, it's up to you guys. So we could
Lock
do-
that out now. Historical
Was it
set, district
29?
at 6. I mean, and then, I mean, it would be helpful if we can come up with a regular schedule, and I know I'm very much the problem with my schedule, but it's
Yes,
helpful to be able to, you know, somebody comes, you can just say, all right, the next hearing's in 3 weeks.
Right, it's done.
We got
It's
time to
in.
post your thing.
So what time are we meeting, 6:30?
I would say if it's, I only did that because I thought that was gonna be shorter than it was, I should have known.
Do you want it, but
I would
if you
say
guys,
6 and 7 unless you
6
guys
and
wanna just
7.
meet together, but historic probably will have its own things, and historic may need to meet sooner if we have updates in the record, I'm sure.
yeah.
I mean, historic, there's not a whole lot going on, I think, you know, we need to figure out if we have, you know, a future of North Ave at some point. You know, historic, I think right now is the record, I'm not sure if there's anything else, you know, maybe some other miscellaneous projects in terms of cemeteries, in terms of, you know, I hope we meet Christina into this future, this scenic road, no wall bylaw someday.
Definitely. Did you jam it to the table? It's usually what we do.
You know, we can get some, you know, maybe for November.
Yeah.
Because I actually just got another email today from Carl, and he was asking about a stone wall up on, you know, Misco Road, and unfortunately, there's no protections.
It's because it's scenic.
But if it's not in the context of road work, because street, this is the problem, the scenic road bylaw very clearly in the beginning says this only applies to work, you know, being done through work in town, road work. That's the problem, it doesn't actually do anything.
I thought it included stone walls.
It does, but it, here, I mean, it's.
What's
It's
the, what
Like
do you
we're
want
trying
to
to
do?
do,
What do they
like if they
want
had to fix the road and like move the
Yeah,
wall.
scenic road designation does not require planning board approval for trimming or other cutting of trees or destruction of stone walls unless related to roadway work. It does not apply, and then it's, I think it further defines roadway work.
to? It's a shame.
This is the problem, and I think the bigger problem is that I don't think the scenic road statute, that's all the scenic road statute is.
Yeah.
I think we need to have a completely separate stone wall bylaw.
Can you imagine
Under
how
different
many
authority.
amazing stone walls we would lose
Right.
if we were to allow
Mhm.
any homeowner to just knock them down? Because what, they're in the
Oh,
way,
yeah.
they don't like the look.
Carl did tell me that Concom puts in their orders of condition that they're not to touch the stone walls. So that's nice.
Yeah.
And I think planning board in the context of subdivision plans has some authority to regulate that, but, you know,
But we have to get them to buy into, you know,
Right.
what we're trying to do.
but, you know, you have somebody new running for that board.
Yeah.
We have Jay Kraus. I think they're open to those conversations when they understand that we're not just trying to shut everything down, we're just, you know.
Yeah, there's gonna be, there's some new people stepping up to the board, so. Keep an eye, read about them, because I think they're good
Mhm.
candidates.
So what time is our meeting?
7.
Ours is at 7?
Yeah.
District?
7, they're 6. But are you on the commission too? Oh,
So the district's gonna meet at 7,
Okay.
because that's not what I'm walk out the store.
$10. You're going down in the debt.
Yeah. I think we can up the ante there.
I think they could.
Who's who posted that?
That's masslegislature.gov,
Really?
section 105.
Actually, one of them, I'm gonna do a little more research.
All right,
Unless you would like to, because I,
You get
yeah.
emails, Ruth gets emails.
Yes.
I usually add, do you get your town email, Ruth?
Oh, yeah, I did,
She
yeah.
took
So
my
I don't need to
first
send
one.
stuff to the ROG, you do. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Well, I don't check it every day.
right, but I'm trying to think that everybody.
If it's something important, we're gonna send it to you.
Because Kathy, you get your
You
town
get
email.
it now, right? Yeah.
See, or Jane, I usually add Jane. I don't know if she gets her town email always.
If it's anything important, though, I.
Yeah.
Send it to you.
Well, what is Jane's email?
I'm just start typing JEL, she come up.
Jill, that's,
Yeah,
yes.
it's like older or something.
Yeah. It's probably the way she registered it. All right, I'm just,
So we're gonna try to contact the building inspector again?
I think that's what Deb's doing.
I just did it.
Okay. Said we missed you tonight. We missed seeing you.
Basically. She'll find out.
Maybe we should send a CC to the selectmen.
Too late, Ruth. It's fine. We'll see what, if he says anything. If he doesn't, then we'll have to see if. I could just call the building department. And see if.
I would try that, in the interest of not,
I don't wanna.
I would try
piss
this
anybody off.
first.
Yeah, that's what I did.
And then if that doesn't work, I think, we need to then escalate.
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to get anybody in trouble, we just want to have
Well,
cops,
not-
we
We
need
just want
advice.
guidance, yeah. So, all right, so we have a new date. Any other issues, questions?
I think,
Oh, did you send me the thing for hardship?
I'll do it before we leave, I gotta type some stuff in here, so if you want to adjourn.
Sure, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting.
That we adjourn.
Oh, there we go. All those in favor?
Let me stop the recording. And say, yeah, I just,